Welcome back, dear viewers, and you are still watching The Breakfast Show. And in this segment of our program, we will talk about the UN General Assembly meetings, which kicked off on Tuesday, where world leaders discuss how to confront global polycrises and find strategies to accelerate action on the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. And now we are joined over the phone by Ambassador Hussein Hareidy, former Assistant Foreign Minister. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, ma'am.
So, Mr. Ambassador, what is unique about this year's session, and what are the main topics under discussion?
The first thing is that for the first time since the outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic, world leaders have gathered in New York to attend the ordinary session of the General Assembly that convenes every September. So this is the first thing. The second is that going over the remarks, whether the senior UN officials, like the Secretary General of the UN, Mr. Antonio Guterres, or the newly elected President of the General Assembly, Mr. Dennis Francis of Trinidad and Tobago, we have a sense that leaders around the world are conscious that the challenges facing the world call for concerted international action, whether we are speaking about climate change, whether we're speaking about food insecurity, famine, poverty. And in this context, several high-level meetings have been taking place this week from September 17th till September 23rd that are dealing with major challenges like climate change. And as a matter of fact, today, the Secretary General of the United Nations is convening a summit on climate change that will be attended by leaders of various countries, plus business leaders and representatives of the private sector, as well as representatives of non-governmental organizations. So, and on the 18th and the 19th, there was a summit, a high-level meeting on the sustainable goals, the Agenda 2030 of the United Nations. And yesterday, United States President Biden, Joe Biden, addressed the and going over his remarks, the United States, the American administration now has said that the challenges facing the world need international action, and he promised that the United States would offer every help possible in order to meet these challenges like climate change, food insecurity, the realization or the acceleration of the implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals. So, in the last 3 days, those who were or have been following the remarks, these various remarks, come with the sentiment, come with a certain sentiment that really the nations, great and small, great and middle powers, would do their best to work together, to cooperate in order to find solutions to the problems facing humanity.
Yes, Mr. Ambassador, this year's UN General Assembly is held under the theme of rebuilding trust and reigniting global solidarity, accelerating action on the 2030 agenda and its sustainable development goals towards peace, prosperity, progress, and sustainability for all. So, sir, the importance of accelerating coordination and building trust and global solidarity at this stage to face the global crises.
That's what is needed today, and it seems, as I said earlier, that world leaders are working towards this goal. And but speaking about the Sustainable Development Goals, the United Nations experts believe that in order to implement these goals, and they are 17 goals, from here to 2030, the world needs between 5, and I underline, please, I underline the figure. Every year, from here to 2030, the world needs from 5 trillion US dollars to 6 trillion US dollars. So the question is the world ready to mobilize such financial resources? That remains to be seen.
Yes, sir. How do you read the speech, U.S. President's speech, Joe Biden yesterday, in which he highlighted many issues like climate change and his U.S. competitiveness with China? How do you read his speech?
Well, the speech is very well written. I guess the tone is positive. Of course, as expected, the pointing out Russia and its responsibility between commas in the outbreak of the war in Ukraine was, of course, quite obvious, quite clear. It was clearly stated that Russia is responsible for the outbreak of the war and
yes.
for working for peace in Ukraine. But aside from issues related to international peace and security, I guess he promised that his administration would cooperate constructively with other countries in order to find solutions to various problems. For instance, he referred that he said that he asked Congress to appropriate 25 billion US dollars for the World Bank in order to provide low and middle income countries, developing countries, with enough financial resources to meet climate change. And then he spoke also, which is very encouraging, as
yes.
I have to say, he spoke about supporting and reforming the multilateral development banks. And he also, on the other hand, he reiterated the position of the Biden administration as far as the reform of the Security Council is concerned. And he said that the United States stands by enlarging the council. And he talked also in this context about giving voice to developing countries in international institutions, particularly economic and financial international institutions. So all in all, after reading the remarks of President Biden, well, it would be very encouraging if the Biden administration would fulfill all the promises contained in his remarks.
Yes. Also, the foreign minister participated at an event in New York organized by the Business Council for International Understanding, and it was attended by leading U.S. companies that is investing or willing to invest in Egypt, and he answered questions about the economic reform program applied to Egypt to boost sustainable growth. Do you think that it will be possible to attract more U.S. investors in the coming period?
Well, this is a very complicated issue.
Yes.
It's not only American investments. It's about foreign investments as in general, and there is a lot to be done in Egypt in order to attract direct foreign investment.
Yes, sir.
And I leave it at that.
So, sir, also, do you think that the Egyptian Sustainable Development process go along with the UN strategy for sustainable development?
Well, I guess Egypt attended. I guess if my memory does not fail me,
yes,
the late President Mubarak had attended the summit that took place, the global summit that took place back in 2016, and where the member countries in the United Nations, including Egypt, agreed on the 17 goals in the sustainable development goals year 2030. So Egypt is a partner in achieving these goals, and of course, some government programs within the country, within Egypt, do aim at achieving, at working in parallel with the Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations.
Yes, sir. One final question. The Global Forum to Combat Terrorism, also currently co-chaired by Egypt and the European Union, is featuring high on the agenda of the UN General Assembly meeting and will be attended by the Foreign Minister. How can the UN member states collaborate efforts to rein in terrorism?
Well, as you may know, Madam, the fight against terrorism is a permanent agenda item on the United Nations General Assembly sessions, in the United Nations General Assembly sessions. So, and of course, we do cooperate with many countries, including European countries, in fighting terrorism through various means, security, exchange of information. So I guess the more we cooperate with the outside world in fighting terrorism, the better it is. But a question remains: what's the definition of terrorism? Is there an agreement on what constitutes terrorism?
Yes,
that we have to take into consideration.
Yes, I'd like to thank you, Ambassador Hussein Hareidy, former Assistant Foreign Minister. Thank you for being with us, and give viewers a short break, and we'll be back, so stay tuned.